Welcome into KSL Sports Rewind's weekly recap video. My name is Dane, Stewart. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Please be joined by Jeff Hansen. And as always, our Rewind video is brought to you by Heidemann and Associates. If you have any legal needs, the experts at Heidemann and Associates can take care of you. It's a full-service law firm, so whether you got to take care of, you got litigation, or maybe you just want to get things set up, living will and trust, whatever you need, they can take care of you. For a free consultation, give them a call, 801-472-7742. Jeff, we've got quarterfinals set in our major classifications. We've got semifinals in our smaller classifications. We're going to try to highlight a lot of that right here. But first, Jeff, we had an amazing Friday night of football across the state.
Yeah, just fantastic games all throughout the state. A little surprising to me, Dane. I was looking at who's there in the quarterfinals and who is there in the semifinals. And with the exception of 6A, where there's a 9 seed and a 12 seed, everything else kind of went chalk, 1 through 8 and 1 through 4 in every other classification. Kind of surprised me that we didn't get a little upsets because we had so many tight games last Friday night.
There was one, Jeff, that I was I felt really good about it, but I felt like it was kind of out on a limb. How about the 6-seeded Summit Academy Bears, with a nice upset? I had them in my bracketology, maybe getting a win this Friday too. We're going to talk about some of the matchups this week, ones that we're keeping an eye on. But before we get into that, there were some nerves on Friday night because there were games, Jeff, that were just like, whoa, what is going on? So we're going to play a little fear factor. We're going to start. I'm going to give you a scenario, Jeff. We were kind of watching games on Friday night as we were calling that Orem West game. And I want you to rate kind of how nervous you were as you were seeing these scores coming through around whether an upset could indeed happen in the quarters or in the second round. Let's start with a world game. This was one, Jeff, that we saw. And we were both kind of like, "Whoa, Jeff! How nervous were you about a potential upset when you saw Juan Diego leading Richfield in the second quarter, 20-7?"
Man, the way that Juan Diego plays with that option attack, the way they keep the ground, the ball on the ground and the clock moving, I was a little bit nervous for Richfield because that's not a team that you want to get behind. Remember, Dane, I think it was week 1. We watched Juan Diego. I think they played Alta. I think it was the first game of the season.
Yep.
And they got that early lead. And then the clock just disappeared. I mean, I think Alta, if I remember right, they ended up coming back, but that was tight, and it was a lot closer than I think any Alta fan thought it would be. The way that Juan Diego rushing attack works, that's a really tough team to come back against. I was a little bit nervous for Richfield. Juan Diego played really, really good, but that comeback, that second half from Richfield, they did enough to get the win. I was a little nervous. I don't know, a scale of 1 to 10, like a 7. I was pretty nervous for Richfield.
It was one where I was a little stunned. Corbin Buckley had a monster game, 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half for Juan Diego. Richfield found their legs in that second half. I think they went on a 21-0 run between the third and fourth quarter. They were able to pull out the 34-27 win, but that was one that was. Well, that one had me a little bit nervous too, Jeff, but the Wildcats do what they need to do to advance in 3A. Let's move to another one. This was one that I'm not going to ask you how nervous you were. I'm going to ask how confident you were because one of the picks you had, if I recall, you had Mountain Crest over Skyview, and in the second quarter, that was 14-0 Stangs, Jeff.
Yeah, I felt pretty good sitting there in the second quarter. That's a rivalry game. Mountain Crest, Skyview. There's some new schools that have popped up in Cache Valley, but way back when, it was Mountain Crest that broke off of Skyview, and that's a rivalry game. And when the Mustangs traveled up to Smithfield and jumped out to an early lead, I thought, okay, this Mountain Crest team, they had just beaten Westfield the week before. They're playing with a ton of confidence. They're on the road and up multiple scores early. That's a good recipe for an upset. I felt pretty darn good, but my goodness, I don't know what to call it, but just the way that Skyview kind of rallied together, didn't get shocked, didn't, fold up their tent and say, holy cow, Mountain Crest is the better team today. They really rallied, and they came back, especially in the second half, And we've seen that from Skyview. They've been tested at times this year, right? Against Orem, that was a back and forth game. They had to come back, and then they had a lead, and then they had to hold on to a lead. They've done that all year long, and I really was impressed with the grit, with the mental toughness of that Skyview team. I felt really good with my Mountain Crest pick going into the half. Well, I guess sitting in the second quarter, I felt really good with my Mountain Crest pick. Skyview, my parents, they're Skyview. Their alma mater is Skyview. They didn't like my Mountain Crest pick very much, and they felt pretty good at the end of the game.
You're supposed to honor your father and mother, Jeff, not dishonor. Man, I can't believe you win against mom and dad. That's bold right there.
Yeah, should have learned.
Well, hey, I'll tell you. I mean, I was curious. I thought that would be a really competitive game. Jack Clark, how about the game for the Skyview quarterback? 76% completion percentage, over 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Jack had himself a big game despite trailing as Skyview came back to get that win. How about another one in 4A? We're going to go back-to-back here in 4A. There's a team with a lot of pride in 4A. It's been a tough year for the Dixie Flyers. They had to go to Provo. They led that game 13-0 in the first quarter, Jeff. How nervous were you for the Provo Bulldogs, the second seed in 4A?
With that one, I kind of felt like Provo, they just needed to wake up, right? They needed that wake-up call. They got that early in the first quarter against Dixie. But Provo has been tested, right? That game against Spanish Fork earlier in the year, I think that's a game that they could really draw from in this one and say, hey, we can come back from deficits. We got to buckle down, get a few stops defensively, get that running game going offensively. And I think that's what Provo did. I wasn't nervous yet. I was a little surprised at how hot Dixie started. Things certainly went their way in that first quarter. But I felt like Provo, 13 points wasn't enough for me to feel super nervous yet, but it certainly had my attention. There's no question.
I mean, it's one of those where I thought Provo would have, handled Dixie. I love the response that we saw from Dixie. It's been a tough year, but they have battled and they have fought in a lot of games. But man, Provo, once they got it going, you're right. Oliver McKay, what a night for him. 29 carries, 220 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns to lead the way for that Provo offense. Once the Bulldogs got running, there was no stopping. I don't know if you've ever seen like a Bulldog run, Jeff. There's kind of like this little like shimmy to it. The Provo offense it did not look like a Bulldog. That thing looked like a cheetah once it got going. McKay and company, they absolutely found their rhythm and ran away with that one. All right, let's move to 5A. There was an interesting game. I thought it'd be interesting. Northridge, Maple Mountain. Northridge led that game 14-7, Jeff. What were your thoughts when you saw Northridge leading Maple Mountain? Nervous?
If I'm a Maple Mountain fan, I would have been nervous in that game. Maple Mountain they've been really good. There's no question. You don't go 8-2 without being really good. But Maple Mountain hasn't had that offense, right? I mean, it's been the defense that has carried Maple Mountain. They've scored points, but they haven't been able to get in shootouts and win. And so when they were down 14-7, and it was like, okay, Northridge is able to move the ball. There was a long touchdown pass by Northridge in the second half as well to make it close. I mean, that game, if I remember right, was 21-21 in the fourth quarter. That was a nail-biter, and the way things went for Northridge with Nye at quarterback, they seemed to get better and more confident as the game went on. I think that's an important win for Maple, obviously because they advance, and that's the name of the game in the playoffs. But I think that team, that's a young team, and I think that they got in a dogfight of a playoff football game and won. That's something that's going to help them this week, but then also help them next year when most of that team comes back. Yeah. This is the kind of game that you build a program off of.
Well, I'm actually interested to see if they can propel Maple Mountain too. That game, Jackson, you talked about that long touchdown pass. That occurred with 4.5 to go in the game. That put Northridge up 21-17. Northridge goes up with 4.5 to go. You're Maple Mountain. You're at home. You fall behind. You talk about new players. And it's the playoffs. They've had a whole season, but man, you don't know how your team's going to respond to those moments. And Maple Mountain, they put together a drive and they needed to. Mason Jensen caps it off with a 6-yard touchdown run as they get the come from behind win. One player I just want to throw out there, I didn't get a chance at least to go cover him. Really wanted to. Jackson Frescus This year, this kid has been a multi-year starter for Northridge. He's a senior this year. Finished off, I think he had 10 receptions, 135 yards, including that 50-plus yard touchdown reception in the fourth quarter, put his team ahead. This is a young man we have not talked about a lot. Really good player for his dad, Coach Andrew Frescas at Northridge, helping get this program back on the map, getting playoff wins, expecting them to be able to have success in their region. Remember, this was a team that handed Beaumont their first loss of the year. This was a good Northridge group. Yeah. Frescas kind of helped build this back up. Wanted to give him a shout out because, again, we haven't had a chance to see him or stream his game, but really good player, really solid career came to an end on Friday night for the Northridge Knights. Let's move on to 6A. 2 and 6A. We're going to hit this one really quick. Syracuse leading Fremont 10-7.5, Jeff. Last couple of weeks, Fremont did not look like the team they were the first several weeks. How nervous were you for the Silver Wolves at the break?
Boy, I was really nervous. At the break, I was nervous, and with about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I was nervous. That was a 20-13 game. Syracuse had the lead. Fremont, they got really, really brave, really courageous, really bold. They score a touchdown with about 6 minutes left, and they go for two to take a 21-20 lead. And then they quickly follow it up, Dane, with an onside kick that they recover to then go and put it away and get the 28-20 win. I was nervous for Fremont. They had multiple quarterbacks playing in that game. Really have to give a shout out. Calvin Cooper and Manasseh Tuatagaloa, they each shared time. Calvin Cooper, just a sophomore, throws a pair of touchdown passes. They don't win that game if Calvin Cooper doesn't come off the bench ready to play. He did really, really well. The defense came up huge, sealed the game with a big turnover at the end. I was nervous. I was nervous several times throughout that game. Really felt like Coach Tulane and that Syracuse team had things working. We talked about it in our bracketology video, Dane. These are two teams that know each other well.
Yep.
I think Coach Tuatagaloa, with the two quarterback system and the way that he came out, that was a different Fremont than Syracuse had seen, especially in the fourth quarter. And it looked like that preparation and that coaching was enough to propel the Silver Wolves to a win.
You talk about being ready when your number's called. You just never know when an injury may happen or it may not be a player's night. And, yeah, you're right. Fremont needed everything they could get in that game in order to get that win over Syracuse. Heck of a ball game. And, look, tip the cap to Syracuse. They had great games this year, some that they would love to have back, have another opportunity. Yeah, they almost had Fremont on the road. But there was one more, Jeff, that I want to get your thoughts on. We were calling a game, and we saw Riverton leading Skyridge. Jeff, what were your thoughts when you saw the Silver Wolves with a lead in the second half against the second-seeded Skyridge Falcons?
Yeah, Dane, I don't know how transparent we want to be, how many confessions we want to make, but we had to pull that stream up while we were calling Tippview or Orem and West, because it was that shocking to see Riverton going toe-to-toe with Skyridge, who'd been our number one team for a long time. That was shocking. And when I saw Riverton with an opportunity in the end zone, a ball in the receiver's hands, Skyridge DB makes a great play, breaks it up in the end zone. I thought Riverton had it. That was I'm anxious to see what Skyridge does. Was that a wake-up call for Skyridge, or was that a fracture and kind of give somebody else, maybe Davis, the game plan of how to beat Skyridge and how to upset Skyridge? There's a ton of talent on that Skyridge team. I think we both picked them to go all the way to the state championship game. But, man, Riverton, what a game from Coach Freeland and his team. They were prepared. They were ready to shine in the biggest moment of the year, and they almost had it. I certainly was nervous for Skyridge. There for a little while, and then they got the ball back again. I really thought that Riverton, there was just so much momentum going for them in the fourth quarter. It felt like that was going to be an upset.
It did. You're right. We had to pull that up because I didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way. Someone's mistyped something. There's no way that's happening. And you're right. You're watching that and you're like, oh my gosh, Riverton could do this. Now, I will say this. It is very rare for a team to go in the playoffs and just get 20 and 30-point wins left and right every round and go win a state championship. Champions are usually tested. And I feel like whoever wins this year is going to have one of those games. There's going to have to be an ugly game where sometimes you just are holding on, by the very thinnest of margins, and you find a way to grit it out. Was it that for Skyridge? Or to your point, is that one where other teams be like, oh my goodness, we could do this and find success? We'll find out because they're going to play a very talented Davis team this week. We'll talk potentially more about that one later. But that one was the game, Jeff, for me, that amongst all of it was just like, oh my gosh, this would not even be chaos. This would be something else if this were to happen.
Yeah.
Skyridge able to hold on and get the win. Okay, we talked about some big games in the playoffs this last week. But what's ahead this week? Jeff, we're going to preview. I'm going to ask you for your favorite matchup coming across our major classifications, and then I'm going to ask you for your favorite rural. Let's start with the rurals, though. Give me your favorite semifinal matchup you have this week, the one you're looking most forward to between 1A, 2A, and 3A.
Yeah, for me, Grantsville. I'm sorry. I picked Ogden. I felt good about it. The Coach Thompson story, we had just been at Ogden. They had a lot of momentum. And Grantsville came out and dominated that game. Defensively, they dominated. Offensively, they played really, really well. They showed me that, hey, look, obviously they beat Ogden. Maybe they can beat Richfield, especially coming off that game that Richfield had. I really like what Grantsville has done. Jaden Atkinson's been great on the ground. He had 120-plus yards last week against Ogden. For me, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, hey, maybe they can do it. Maybe there was that game against Richfield. Maybe they're not quite as dominant as we expected them to be. If I'm a Grantsville player, I'm a Grantsville coach, I'm going to feel really confident coming off of that win against Ogden and looking ahead at Richfield and saying, they are not the juggernaut that everyone thought that they were. We've got a shot at this. For me, that's a big game. Now, on the Richfield side of things with Wayman and Yardley, they've got the talent, and they've done it all year long, but they've got to regroup. They got tested in a way that maybe they weren't expecting to be tested, and so it's kind of like we just talked about with Skyridge. Is that a wake-up call, and Richfield's able to regroup quickly and get back to form? Or does that kind of punch them in the mouth a little bit, and now they're a little bit shakier? Maybe is their confidence a little bit weary? I don't know what's going to happen, but that game is a lot more exciting to me today after last week than I thought maybe it would be had these two teams met in the playoffs maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Interesting. That's a good one, Jeff. And I agree. I think the way that you saw those quarterfinals go, that'll be a doozy. Let me tell you the one I'm looking most forward to. It's kind of like, I don't know what this feeling is like, but it's kind of like when you have a son who plays on one team and a son who plays on another team and they play each other and you want both to win. That's what I have to go through on Saturday. Why? Because I've got the Milford men over here and I've got Beaver over here. And I know it's a rivalry, and I know people are like, oh, you can't like both teams. I like them both, okay? Like the Milford men and Bryson Barnes, like that was a very special time, and I just got something in my heart for Milford. Meanwhile, Beaver, I took a pie in the face for the Beavers for crying out loud. Like, if that doesn't connect you, I don't know what does. This was a 1-point game in the regular season. Beaver led this game. Milford scored with under a minute left, and Milford goes for 2 and the win. They fall short. The Beaver defense gets the stop, and Beaver beats them 28-17. It's a rivalry game. They're just 30 miles apart or so on country back roads, and a trip to the state championship on the line in what was a super close game. Sosi, the quarterback for Milford, did not throw for any touchdowns in this game. It's only the second game all year he did not pass for a touchdown. Meanwhile, Beaver, Hollingshed ran for 130, and Bodie Wheatley had another rushing touchdown. It's just what he does. I am so excited for this matchup. Beaver, Milford, playoffs, yes, please, sign me up. And, you talk about you don't know how much we should share. I guess I'll open up behind the scenes a little bit. We had a certain Twitter account reach out to us, and they understood that, Dane has had to wear a pick in the past, but we got a little something going on with North Summit. There's a little intrigue. So if it is North Summit and Beaver in a state championship and North Summit gets a win, then, we've got a little something in store for our fans up in Colville. Little deal negotiated behind the scenes, but there's a lot that has to happen for that to happen. I'm more than comfortable for it though, but Beaver, Milford, I think it's going to be a heck of a 1A semifinal.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of really good rural games this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm anxious to see how Manti does. I mean, Manti, I believe Mason Starkweather didn't play a week ago. What's happening there? Is he back? Is he healthy? There's a lot of storylines throughout rural football right now.
That's a big one. All right, Jeff, let's go to 4A. When you look at the quarterfinal games, 4 games in 4A this week, which quarterfinal game are you most excited or intrigued about?
Well, I think I know what game you're most excited about, so I want to leave that reserved for you. We'll see if I'm right. But I'm really looking forward to Green Canyon going down and playing Crimson Cliffs. What we saw from Green Canyon last year, I remember talking with Coach Tauilili last year, and he talked about 11-man football, and that's their mantra. And this Crimson team, they're not quite the juggernaut that they were a year ago, but they are a very, very good team that's getting better as the season has gone along. So how does this team, 11-man football, where they really, truly play 2 assignments, Green Canyon is one of the most disciplined teams in 4A, go up against the talent and kind of the resurgence of Crimson Cliffs? I think that game is going to be a lot more interesting than it seems like on the surface. If all you do is just look at the helmets, look at the names, it might be easy to say, oh, Crimson's going to win going away. But that Green Canyon team, they usually play best when they're counted out, and they've been there in the playoffs. I really love the way that Coach Tauilili runs that program. I love the way that he rallies his guys, and they've made a deep playoff run that nobody saw coming before. What's to say that they can't do it again? I think that game's got some intrigue this week.
Interesting, Jeff. Yeah, that is one that could certainly be it could shock the state. We'll see if they can pull it off or not. You're right. There is one I'm really excited about, and it's because, okay, first of all, we know, Jeff, you and I. Well, I'm big into what? Helmets and uniforms, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You want to know my favorite helmet in the state? I can't believe I'm going to say this on there. My favorite helmet in the state. You want to guess?
I think I know. I think you've told me several times, actually. I think it's our Park City Miners.
It's the first time, Jeff, because I don't talk about this very often. The Park City Miners have the best helmet in the state. You got like the little cursive script on one side. You got the logo on the other. And when you see those things up close,
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I got one for our championship or our semifinal coverage last year. It was really hard for me to give back to Coach Monzingo. I'm not gonna lie. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So you got the best helmets in the state, and you're going up against Spanish Fork. It's not that their helmets are bad. It's just anyway. You have strength on strength. This is like Dane's looks against Dane's brains, right? It's like the best going up against the best, right?
Yeah.
You've got one of the top scoring offenses in 4A in Spanish Fork with McKay Smith, Caden Vest. That duo, Vest is one of the top running backs in the state. Smith, I remember through like week 7, I think it was, he had like 17 touchdowns and no picks. Like the guy doesn't turn the ball over. They've got a, Big Ten tackle in Aaron Dunn, committed to SC, and they've got extremely talented receiving core. And you've got a Park City defense. You've talked about, we do not talk about Park City. I have not talked about Park City much this year. You're right. Here's what's crazy. You think about I think it's the top scoring offense in all of 4A in Spanish Fork. It's the second best scoring defense in all of 4A in Park City. And they gave up 33 to Timpanogos. That's the most they've given up all year long. They just don't allow points. Strength on strength, be really interesting to see if Park City can scheme something up for Spanish Fork, because there's so many options for Spanish Fork. This will be the best offense that Park City has played all year. And when if you want to say, well, they haven't played a lot, they limited Stansbury to 14. So like this Park City defense is more than talented, and then you mix in Bash Bodley. There's a lot of options for Park City. I think this one's going to be super, super fun. Strength on strength. Who wins? We'll find out up in Park City on Friday night.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good game. And I knew, if I'm honest with myself, I think that's the game I'm most excited about too, but I know how much you've led the Spanish Fork train all year. I couldn't take this moment away from you now.
Well, I appreciate that. And before we get someone on Twitter reaching out, my bad, it's at Spanish Fork. I'd hate it if we got something wrong. We film this show live. It's like 45 minutes of content. Sometimes we get one or two things wrong here. That game's at Spanish Fork. Park City at Spanish Fork Friday night. Should be a doozy. All right, 5A, Jeff. 5A quarterfinals. Which game has you most intrigued?
Well, there's a couple of really, really good games in 5A, a couple of really good rematches. I'm going to go with Orem and Timpview. Maybe it's because I just saw Orem play, so it's top of mind for me. But I'm really excited for that game because it is a little bit different. There is a wrinkle, and it is Soakai Aston at quarterback, not Carson Rasmussen. And Aston, he played last week, and all he did was go 21 of 26 for nearly 300 yards through the air. That's the backup quarterback. This team is really good, this Timpview team. But Orem is going to feel confident. That game wasn't close and until the fourth quarter when Orem made a run. Ultimately, Timpview, they did get that win in Week 10, and they won the region championship. But I think Orem is going to find some confidence with the way that they came back and they played late. They'll be able to draw from that. And look, if you've got Faleti Yangi and Kawe Akana on your team, you're going to feel pretty good. There's a lot of weapons for that Timpview offense. If somehow the Orem defense is able to contain Aston in the passing game, you contain the Pulas. Timpview's recently turned to Isa Gallier a lot in the running game. And Gallier, he's been phenomenal. And then you mix in Chavis Gregory, who just committed to Army. That's top 25 Army. That's two really, really good running backs as well. That offense is good. It comes down to the quarterback. And I really like the way Aston played a week ago. He is a backup quarterback. So there's always that little bit of intrigue there of how is he able to run the offense. Because of that, I'm just slightly more excited for Orem Timpview's rematch than maybe another rematch in 5A. But a lot of really, really good games coming up.
A lot of really good games. Look, when Orem is on their best, man, they can compete with anyone. We'll see if they can do that Friday afternoon. Game I'm looking most forward to. Jeff, should we make an announcement? Let's make an announcement. It's the game we're going to be at. Viewmont at Roy, a rematch of a region rivalry in the playoffs nonetheless. And remember, this was a game Viewmont jumped out. This was I don't want to say the coming out party, but it was Benji Tolman. Remember, we saw Benji with 3 rushing touchdowns in this game as Viewmont jumped on Roy 14-0. This was, I think, the start of the 99-yard touchdowns for Roy on like 2 or 3 consecutive weeks with the Eleniki 99-yard pick 6. Robert Young had a couple of touchdowns in this one, but Roy was not very successful throwing the football. They had to do it in the ground game and defense. We'll see if Viewmont, attempt number 2, can get that defense just tweaked ever so slightly. But Viewmont scored the ball, especially in the first half. It was 14-0 and 14-14. They got a touchdown late, but we'll see if Viewmont has something on the road for this Roy team. But I'm excited to see Robert Young. Never seen Robert Young live, so excited to see him play. And that running attack of Roy, which is explosive because it was actually Sella who had the leading rushing day for Roy in that first matchup. They got a lot of options, a lot of weapons. I'm excited for this one. See if I think Viewmont felt like they were close that first time, lost by multiple possessions. We'll see if they can get a little bit of revenge. And this is, by the way, this is the deepest Viewmont has been in the playoffs since 1980, Jeff. That's before I was born. So Coach Jones, this group, they have a chance to do something special. They get to a semifinal, I think for the first time since 80 as well, when they made it to a state championship game. This Viewmont team can do something really special if they can pull off a win on the road.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. We didn't even mention Olympus Brighton for what it's worth, which is a phenomenal game. So all due respect to Olympus and Brighton, that game could have been either one of our answers. There's a lot of really good 5A games this week.
A lot of really good 5A games this week. And Bountiful Maple Mountain as well. So Brighton Olympus, that might be the first to what, 14? First to 14 wins that one?
Yeah, first to 3, maybe? Yeah. I mean, defensive struggle.
Well done. Well done. All right. 6A, Jeff. 6A quarterfinals. Which 6A game are you most intrigued for this week?
Yeah, like 5A. A lot of good games to pull from. But I made a bold call in our bracketology. I can't look away from that game now. It's here. I picked Weber over Corner, and now Corner has a chance to just completely make me look dumb and go and do Corner Canyon things. But this Weber team, man, they play with heart. I think this is the best team that Corner has played since the injuries just started to decimate that roster, since Kasuga went down. This is a huge test. Weber is very good. They've got good players on both sides of the ball. Catch Carne is back. He's healthy. He's found his rhythm. The way that they came back against Bingham, that's a huge momentum booster. Look, Bingham, I get it that Bingham maybe hasn't been the team that they were 10 years ago, right? But for us Region 1 guys up north, there is something mental about going down and beating Bingham at Bingham in the playoffs. That's the kind of win that doesn't happen for Region 1 schools very often. That's a big momentum boost. Now you've got to go and play a completely different level in Corner Canyon, but Weber's going to feel as confident as they have all year. They are so good in all three phases of the game. Elmore had a kickoff return for a touchdown against Bingham. Catch Carne on the offensive side. He runs that passing game really well. You've got Dyson. And then Tyler Payne, I think he's got 140 some odd tackles on the year. He's a tackle machine. And for a corner offense that has played really well but is missing so many pieces, I'm really curious to see if Weber and their heart and the way that they play just team football and they're really well disciplined, if they can keep that game close in the first half and not get overwhelmed by the machine that is Corner Canyon, then I think an upset could be in the makings. I'm really excited to see what the Warriors do on the road against Corner Canyon.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I know, Jeff, you made that pick. I still get people commenting like, I can't believe you guys picked that. It's like, look, it's all on Jeff, and we'll see if he's right or not. That's a big one. I'll tell you, Weston Briggs is coming off a huge game for Corner Canyon. I think he ran for like 199 yards. I want to say he had 3 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. The Corner Canyon depth has been really strong. Weber's going to have something special. And I love that you call out Tyler Payne. Let me give you one more name. I'm interested if we see Carter Payne and his impact. Remember, he was the one who had to kind of carry the offense a little bit while Catch Carney was out on injury. Maybe have a package or two for him to keep that Corner Canyon defense honest, but that'll be a doozy of a game. I got a different game, but I think it carries some similar weight, and that is Davis Skyridge. We talked about Skyridge coming off a tough victory over Riverton, and I say tough because Riverton made them earn that, and they had to figure out some things with Sweet Wine and that ground game in Selu. Was that real, or was that just a bad week? If it was real, this Davis team has the options to create some problems this next week. If it was a bad week for Skyridge, then this game could be over by halftime because this Skyridge team can be that good. They really are, Jeff, one of the best teams, if not the best, in all of 6A. And so with the consistency we've seen from them, if they're back to that level, this game may get away from Davis. But Davis has the options to go put points on this Skyridge defense. We've talked about Bessinger all year long. You talk about the rest of that. Bodie Sparrow is a young man, plays both sides of the ball for Davis. He's one of their top receivers. He's also great on the defensive side of the ball. You've got Owen Talbot running the ball. Like, they've got so many different options. Their lines are going to have to bring their lunch pail. Speaking of Davis, O-line, D-line, you better be in for just, 48 minutes of hard physical football because Skyridge is going to bring it. If Davis lines can play up to their potential, this game could be really interesting. If Skyridge comes in angry, I don't want to play Skyridge. Region 1 has a chance to do something, to your point, that they do not get a chance to do very frequently. That is go on the road in the playoffs and get a big win over a heavy favorite. We'll see if Davis can do it this week.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good game. Big moments for Region 1. Fremont's got another big moment. Region 1 could make a statement and say, hey, rest of the state, take us seriously. It could be a big week.
And look, the thing about 6A, we've talked about just about every game. We did not talk about AF Lehigh. But the other 3, to your point, it's not out of the realm to say Region 1 teams have a chance this week. These are not foregone conclusions that they can't compete with these teams. That's how even 6A is this year. I was talking with someone this week, and it was just like, man, this is so awesome that 6A is competitive. There's not just one or two teams who are like, oh, it's going to be those two, or it's going to be that one. No, there's a legit 4, 5, 6 teams you can make a real claim will find themselves playing for a state championship this year in 6A. It's going to be an absolute blast to see how this plays out. Jeff, any final thoughts before we head to more playoff action this Friday night?
No, we mentioned Tyler Payne. Maybe that's my last thought. Look, if you get 20 tackles in an individual game in the playoffs on the road, then you deserve a shout out. Tyler Payne, and then he added a sack just for the cherry on top. He's led the state in tackles for, I think, the last 2 years now. 20 tackles against Bingham. That's absurd. He is one of the most productive players in the state. And we kind of forget about him, tucked in there underneath Ben Lomond Peak up there at Weber. He's been phenomenal for the Warriors all season long.
You know what it is? We don't talk about defense very much because the game is so offensively oriented, and defensive stats tend to be tougher to kind of corral and to really know whether they're complete or not. But you're right. Tyler Payne, what a career for Weber. He has been, really the leader for that Weber defense the last couple years. Crazy to think. Senior year, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Year.
Crazy to think it's coming to an end for Tyler Payne, a young man we've seen covered for years now for Weber. See if he can extend his team's year one more week. We've got action for you right here on KSLSports.com. We're going to have semifinal streams in the Rurals. We'll also have live streams for you, 5A, 6A, 4A, 5A, and 6A on KSL Sports on Friday night. And then be sure to come join us next week. Jeff and I will be back. Getting you all ready because we are going to have semifinal coverage to depths that no one else will provide. Pre-games, halftimes, and post-games for every semifinal and championship in 4A, 5A, and 6A, all live from Rice-Eccles Stadium. You can catch all that right here on KSLSports.com as we take you all the way to state champions only on KSL. Well, only online on KSLSports.com. For Vince Francis, Jeff Hansen, my name's Dane Stewart. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on KSL Sports Rewind.